Very good afternoon, everybody. Today is the second day of our presentations. Semester 4 students are making presentations on African literature. This is the afternoon session, and in this session we will have these presentations. Let me show the screen and their topics, students, name of the students and the topics. The first one will be by Upasana on postcolonial identity, cultural struggle in Petals of Blood, followed by Trushali's on a postcolonial critique of the Petals of Blood by Ngugi Thiong'O. Rinkal will make it on exploring love, hate, and human nature with reference to Vultures. Riddhi on neocolonialism in Petals of Blood, to put a space after off before blood. When neocolonialism, you can put a hyphen in between. Rajeshvariba on Wanja's journey through prostitution in Petals of Blood from a feminist perspective. It also requires this from, you can put a colon after Petals of Blood and say a study from a feminist perspective. Pooja will make on sensory experience and emotional resonance in Gabriel Okara's The Piano and the Drums. Payal will make it on Soyinka's Dance of the Forest, a postmodern conceptualization. Dance of the Forest is the title, so you have to put it in inverted commas. Nirali on Motherhood in Joys of Motherhood, universal happiness. I think Joys of Motherhood also is the title, so you have to put it into inverted commas. Mansi on title significance of the Joys of Motherhood, and Insia Fatima will read it on Chinua Achebe's Vultures, and Belson Camp Genocide. Genocide insights into this works. Okay, so let us start with the first one. Upasana, you can start your presentation.
So hello everyone, I'm Upasana Goswami, and today I'm going to present the topic Postcolonial Identity and Cultural Struggle in Petals of the Blood. These are my personal information. These are a table of content which I discuss in my presentation. These are some questions about the presentation. Biography about the author. Ngugi Thiong'O was born in 1938 in Kenya. Kenya during the British colonial rule, lived throughout the Mau movement, independence as a youth, which influenced his writing. Literally since in 1962, which the play The Black Hermit as a University of Nairobi lecturer, as a Nairobi lecturer, advocated an African literature. Focusing into exist from 1992 and 2004 due to prestige by Kenya government, faced as a attempts and censorship of his book by Kenya. These are some key points about the novel, Petals of the Blood. Petals of the Blood is published on 1977. The settings of this novel is village Immorago in Kenya from British colonial rule. Plot of this novel revolves around the lives revolves around the lives of four protagonists: Munira, Karega, Wanja, and Abdullah, whose path converge graphically with the betrayal of the promise. Theme of this novel is corruption, identity, loss, ethical values, and way of life, exploration of workers, the role of women in struggle for liberation. These are some main protagonists of Munira, Karega, Wanja, and Abdullah. Style of this Battles of the Blood used to multiple narratives and viewpoints. Blend of English, Swahili, and Gikuyu language. Historical context: Petals of the Blood is a set against the backdrop of struggle for Kenya, independence from British colonial rule, and the Mau Mau movement. This defining anti-colonial conflict deeply influenced Ngugi's works. The novel, uh, uh, the novel with transitions from a colonial to post-colonial and neo-colonial Kenya critiques the equality, corruption, and injustice, independence. The concept of a Ritvika, the peaceful transfer power between generation every 13 years to traditional advocate. Mugiba was influenced by Caribbean writers like George Lemming and Neptune in widening his anti-colonial visual to border. The essay suggests the novel covertly the acknowledged role to Kenya of prostitution, who aided the Mau Mau struggle. What is the post-colonialism? Critiques the basis, the injustice, the negative impact of colonial rules on negative populations, such as the oppression, racism, explosion, cultural suppression, etc. Examine how colonial legacies and power structure continue to shape a global system and societies even after post-colonial independence. Give a marginalized people a voice to post-colonialism. Give a marginalized people to a voice to their own stories and represent their own identity. Represent their own identity and defined by colonial narrative. In similar terms, post-colonialism trims to undo the deep-rooted impact of neocolonial reality. It improve a formerly colonized people to reclaim their cultural, social, political sovereignty. Post-colonialism in Africa. Post-colonialism refer to the regimen of studies to the impact of implication of colonialism or colonial territories after the end of colonial rules and attempting of independence. Before independence, most colonial territory was completely depend on the political, economical, and social cultural state. After the independence, there was a high experience of political, economic, and social transformation. Gugiva Thiong'O novel Petals of the Blood provide a comprehensive analysis of the evils prevalent in independence Kenya, African society by black elites, capitalists, and neocolonialists who have replaced the white colonial rules. Post-colonial theory attempt to deconstruct and reconstruct uh, reconstruct Eurocentric assumptions by developing industries, African theories of value, post-colonial issue and social political change in Kenya, an analysis of Petals of Blood. The novel depicts the three stages of Kenya: historical development, colonial rule, and colonial imperialism. By white colonizer, the Mau Mau struggle of liberation and the post-independent era marked by betrayal of a liberation ideal. In the Petals of the Blood, we can see a social political change throughout the novel. Kenyan people face Mau Mau during the Mau Mau movement. Face so many struggle. It shows how the attempt of political independence did not translate to real socio-economic for the masses who continue to face land displacement by the new African ruling class working with a neoclassical capitalist theme like also the Petals of the Blood theme like poverty, prostitution, class division, corruption, social injustice, moral disaggregation of traditional African society. Women in this novel, we can see a post-colonial issue in a woman like Wanja show resist lines, but also exploit reflecting the feminist theme of reclaiming independence. Also, character Abdullah and Nyakinya represented disillusionment and failed against the new colonial order. The novel provides sketching critics of how the African nationality dreams was in the post-colonial era, also by colonial rule. Post-colonial identity in the novel Petals of the Blood. The novel expressed so many post-colonial identity, the hybridity and fragmentation. The village of Ilmore itself depicted as fragmented into distinct communities like a Cape Town for the West and New Jerusalem for work and migrant after independence. Ambivalence and mimicry. The main character like Wanja, Munira, Karega, and ambivalent relationship toward their pre-colonial past and the new post-colonial reality. They find themselves behavior and ideology of the former colonial powers, the neo-colonial authority, liminal identities, the identities of the protagonist, the positions in liminal third space, third space that they occupy this in between space that the colonial binary self and others. Cultural struggle in the Petals of the Blood. In this novel, we can see the so many after the post-colonialism, the people face so many cultural struggle in throughout the novel. The concept of how the village Ilmorego used to be a community of peasants living in harmony with nature, but these pestilent existence was distributed by outside forces of explanation. The character expressed the event after Kenya became independent. They did not achieve a real freedom as they had hoped. There was a still feeling that more need to be done marks independence meaningfully. Capitalism lead to concentration of a wealth in a few land rather than previous community living this in individual ownership replaces the communal way of life. Loss of spiritual land connection. The reference the maintain how the land lost its spiritual significance of the people, break for the traditional reversions for the land. The figure of post-colonial woman in Petals of the Blood. In this point, we can discuss how after the post-colonialism effect, for some woman character figures. Ngugi Thiong'O's novel Petals of the Blood portrays the explanation of oppression faced by women in post-colonial Kenya throughout the character of Wanja and prostitution. In this novel, we can see the Wanja character was abused by the teacher, and throughout the novel, Vanja character was prostituted by someone. Vanja's profession as a barmaid and eventual into prostitution is depicted as the result of a oppressive colonial and patriarchal system that left a woman with few options. Wanja and other women face sexual exploration from white colonializer, political officer, bar owner, and customers, reflecting the victimization of a colonized woman. Also, Wanja and others women faced so many sexual harassment, so many political officer, white people, reflecting the idea about colonialism after post-colonialism. Wanja sees a little difference between the explanation of women as a prostitute and men as a worker, laborers, and under capitalism and colonialism. We can see the difference in men and women. Women are only focus on prostitution, and men describe the worker, labor, and some industrial capitalism works. Within the patriarchal Kenyan society, women are regarded as inferior to men, expected to be subservient mothers with no independence. In this novel, patriarchal Kenyan society expresses the idea about women feel the inferior to the men. Patriarch practices like polygamy and domestic violence against women are criticized as example of oppression post-colonial women face. Vanja's experience symbolized the humanization, exploration and barriers suffered by Kenyan women and the Kenyan people under a colonial and colonial forces. Now I conclude my presentation. The novel portrays the fragmented hybridity and liminal nature of post-colonial Kenya identity, that the colonial binaries character occupy an ambivalent third space between pre-colonialism and traditional and the post-colonial reality. Throughout the novel, character Vanja struggle as a throughout the novel, character Vanja as a protagonist. Munira struggle in their education system. So we can see the political agenda. Also, women like Wanja represented oppression faced by Kenya women under the patriarchal neo-colonial system. Overall, the novel captured the uphill navigating post-colonial throughout the ambivalent identities, marginalized narratives, and the cultural clash between identity of the cultural traditions and neo-imperialism after independence. Here is my references. Now, you can ask me.
Upasana, how does the Petals of Blood actively challenge and subvert colonial narratives and structure of power?
Yes. Petals of Petals of Blood by Ngugi Thiong'O actively challenge and subvert colonial narrative, challenge the colonial narrative and struggle of power. The Petals of the Blood express the idea of colonial power, colonial power, and how the effect colonial power affect the society and how they affect our culture, our personal identity, and also they affect cultural effect.
Upasana, how does the post-colonial identity of the characters in Petals of Blood influence their cultural perspectives?
The post-colonial identity of characters in Petals of Blood influence their cultural perspective. Heavily influence their heavily influence the examine and interrogation shaping perspective on a colonial history and cultural power dynamic in the Petals of the Blood. Hello everyone, very good afternoon to all. Today on the second day of presentation semester 4 on the African literature, I am going to explore my presentation on the topic the post-colonial critic of the novel Petals of Blood by Ngugi Thiong'O. Post-colonial critic of the novel Petals of Blood by Ngugi Thiong'O. These are my academic details. These are the questions that I will try to explore in my presentation. First one is, how does Petals of Blood reflects post-colonial themes such as resistance, cultural identity, and the impact of colonial legacies on Kenyan society? And how do the foreign powers and multinational companies and local elites perpetuates the exploitation and inequality in the post-colonial Kenya depicted in the novel The Petals of Blood, and how does its character navigates through all these tensions between the liberations, political activism, labor strikes, and its consequences, later portrayed in the novel. These are the points. Petals of the Blood is a novel written by a Kenyan writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, published in 1977. The novel is set in the 1960s and the early 1970s and narrated in the third person omniscient point of view. The novel took place in the during this Kenyan independence struggle, somewhat after the Kenyan independence struggle, as the Kenyan country got independence in 1963. It also covers the major role of Mau Mau rebellion that took place during 1952 to 1960s, and how does it also influence to grant the independence to India in some ways. To understand a post-colonial critique in the novel The Petals of Blood, it remains essential to explore the background of post-colonial study as well as what is post-colonialism. M.H. Abram, in his book A Glossary of Literary Terms, he says that post-colonial studies refers to a critical analysis of history, cultural, literature, and modes of discourses that are specific to the former colonies of England, the countries like Spain, France, and other European imperial powers. And these studies have focused especially on the third world countries in Africa, Asia, the Caribbean islands, and South America also include the African countries. Gayatri Chakravarti Spivak's seminal work, A Critic of Post-Colonial Reasons Towards the History of the Vanishing Present. In this book, she talks about some point, it talks about the assumptions and biases that are inherited in the Western philosophical tradition, and how does it impact to the literature and situation towards this third world country in terms of post-colonial consequences. The novel is set in the real historical background of Mau Mau rebellion and independence of Kenya. The novel swings between this independence of Kenya, after independence of Kenya, and it traces the past of Mau Mau rebellion. So, major part of the novel talks about the consequences and after effects of colonial powers in the novel, and how does it operates throughout the novel. Caesar Mann says that the ideal African novel, Ngugi, Caesar Mann quotes an interview quote by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, as the Ngugi says that the ideal African novel would embrace the pre-colonial past, the colonial past, and the post-independence period with a pointer to the future. So, in this interview, Ngugi wa Thiong'o tries to explain what does these African novels should incorporate in it. So, he tries to say that it should include the pre-colonial past in Africa, also the colonial past, and the post-independence period. While looking at all three major span of literary history and actual history, the novel will try to explore some of the concerns and ideas. According to Carol M. Caesarman, Petals of Blood looks at the present in the light of past. Novel is much about the present after independence of Kenya, but it looks towards the past. How certain events before before the independence has put a lasting impact on the characters and how they are getting affected towards it. There are three different phases in social formation: a long period of pre-capitalist, pre-colonialist relations, then colonialism, and finally neo-colonialism. The novel tries to explore all three aspects: pre-colonization, colonialism, and neo-colonial aspects through various examples and characters. In the novel, it is said that our children, Kariga says that our children must look at the things that deformed us yesterday, that are deforming us today. They must also look at the things which formed us yesterday, that will creatively form us into a new breed of men and women who will struggle against those things that dwarf us. So Kariga tries to teach his students to look at the history, present, and future to analyze each and every thing that are happening to them. And he also says that the students are not getting taught the real history of Kenya or Africa. So he has a bit regret about that, that as well, that students are not taught certain things that should have been known to them. While thinking about this post-colonial critique of the novel, it remains essential to look at the colonial legacies that are prevailing in the novel and in the independence Kenya. There is an economic exploitation, political corruption, which is done by elite. Earlier, it was done by the colonial powers, and now, after independence, it is being carried out through the elite people within their community. Riera, who is a businessman in the novel, his private company, Ilmorog, Investment and Holding Limited, their focus is to develop the area, but while doing so, they are in a way exploiting the native people of Kenya, the Gikuyu people and other people living in Kenya. There is the construction of Trans-African Road, and while construction of this road, various promises made to people that you will get land, you will get a certain place, you will get jobs and everything. But all the promises were literally fake, and afterwards people didn't get anything in return. And the aspiration and expectation of people from their own government, they fall in getting that. So they didn't get that much what has been told to them in the response to their land. There is a deep cultural alienation that has also found, because there is the implications of Western influences. The current guy in the novel is the man who is literally dedicated to the struggle for the people of King, and throughout he is being inherited to that thing. Whereas Munira, initially or in the till the ending part of the novel, it seems that Munira doesn't interested in the politics and the struggle of people. He is very much remains away from all the things, and he somewhat feels that it is not as important as the other ones. So, but at the end, he tries to get indulged in some of the rebellions and all the things. But he remains the westernized in the novel. Thoroughly. License to sail Thangeta was taken away from Wanja from Deriva Riera. So Thangeta is a drink that has been taught by Vanja's grandmother to her, which is a traditional Kenyan African drink. And they were Vanja and Abdullah tried to sell this Thangeta drink, and the license of selling this drink was taken away by Deriva Riera because of their own purposes, to their own products that should be consumed by people in Kenya. Moreover, it has a racial hierarchy. Like after this colonial hierarchies, after the colonial powers and getting independence from them, within the within the Kenyan people, they are having this racial hierarchy within themselves. Mizigo, Chui, Kimedia, Derivariera, all those are the rich elite people within Kenyan society. So all four are businessmen and they are ruling over their own people. So the neo-colonialist situation is getting arised. How new colonialism is taking place in the novel. So land is getting seized by their own people, like Nyakunya's land. Nyakunya is the grandmother of Wanja, whose land was sold, was intact. So uh, Wanja had to pay some money to save Nyakunya's land, and for that she and Abdullah sells their bar, and then Wanja has to run a prostitute. There are issues of peasants and farmers. Constantly, the issues related farmers and peasants, things are going on. There are harvest problems, and people are going to their elected leaders, and they are telling their problems, but at the same time, they are not getting the response back from their local people in power. Franz Fanon, in his work, The Wretched of the Earth, he says that while countering with this idea of Karl Marx about the infrastructure is the superstructure, he says that Fanon, that infrastructure is also the superstructure. So here, this idea can be little bit drawn from the Fanon's idea as well, because infrastructure economy, like what Mark has said, is in the Kenyan or Gikuyu people in itself. It is becoming the superstructure in the power. So the people in power, in the the local people in the power, they are leading the superstructure of the Kenya and this ilm. There are local elites, as I mentioned, and along with this local elites, there are foreign collaborators in terms of this westernization and globalization. And this four character, Mizigo, Chui, Kimedia, and Derivariera, all four are the local elites and businessmen that are getting collaborated with the other people, foreign people, and to bring this modernization. Uh, the language Munira uses, that of power, that of owner, master, lord, reveals Munira's desire of power and control. It is the language of the colonial master. So the language that has been used by colonial masters are being used by the people, local people, to power and to be powerful on their own people. In throughout the novel, there is a resistance and revolution. Earlier, they are fighting with this British colonies, like Mau Mau rebellion. But in the novel, it is portrayed that people of Kenya had to fight back to the government, to their own elected people, their own representatives. There is the political activism by various characters in the novel. Labor strike, like Karika's Union Organization for Social Justice and Land Reform. And he wants to educate his students to question the authority. This question, this point of Karika to question the authority remains relevant to each and every democratic nations or independent nation in the world. Vanja strike for wages. She was working in a mine, so she for increasing their wages, they strike for that. Abdullah does a fight for workers' right and against the exploitative practices of multinational companies. Because multinational companies, with the modernization and westernization, grabbed the lands and the rights of local people. Gender also plays a significant role while thinking about the post-colonial studies. Vanja is the female protagonist. As Spivak says, that if in the context of colonial production, the subaltern has no history and cannot speak, the subaltern as female is even more deeply in shadow. So, while looking at all the male characters
characters like Abdullah, uh, Karega, and Munira. Wanja is the one who is getting mostly exploited. She is sexually exploited by Kimeria. She gets pregnant, and she had to run a prostitute house to, like, say, to do earning for her. So female are getting more and more marginalized and being more in shadow. Rose argues that while Wanja can be seen as an archetypal figure representing Kenya and Africa, Ngugi also grounds her character in the specific historical context of Kenyan woman. He says that in bringing to the light the historical position of Kenyan women at the time the book takes place, I hope to illuminate Vanja's character in such a way that we can see her, like Munira, Kaida, and Abdullah, as a very real representative of Kenyan nation. Vanja remains a hope and a true fighter. She has fought so many obstacles in her life, and she becomes a true representative of Kenyan nation. There is this Gikuyu traditions related to women. All the traditions are there. She turns into prostitution. Her rebellion proves her being a strong woman in this Kenyan country. There is an exploitation of Africa and African people and resources. This can be compared to Wanja. How? So Wanja is representative of exploitation of Africa and African people. She becomes a representative. Roos further argues that through Vanja's contradiction and complexity, Ngugi resists reducing her to simplistic categorization and presents her as an integral part of defining and creating Kenya's future. So, like Vanja's future, the Kenya's future remains very unsettled till the ending of the novel. There remains a hope as Vanja. Along with this neo-colonial aspects, while thinking about post-colonial studies, environmental concerns also remains there. So there, in the novel, there is also a rapid westernization, privatization, this trans-African road and promises made to people in return of their land, but they eventually didn't get anything in return of that. Antonia argues that the post-colonial nation of Kenya continued to the exploitative colonial system through its elite leaders' embrace of capitalism, multinational corporations, and the dispossession of the masses from their lands and livelihoods. So, Kenyan people, there were some also the real life. Exploitation of people along with this trans-African road. This Mau rebellion, Mau forest rebellion was there, in which the lots of native people lost their places. There was encroachment of people in the forest. There was deforestation that was affecting the livelihood of Kenyan people. So that is very well integrated by Ngugi wa Thiong'o, and in a way, Ngugi wa Thiong'o proves to be a historian. Along with being a fictional writer, in the novel, he tries to put the real life events to explore the background. Now we see the outcome. It is in the novel. The lawyer in the novel says, now we see the outcome. The god grows big and straight and shines even brighter. The brighter and wets, the appetite of his spirits, the monster has, through the priesthood, decreed only the ethical code, greed and accumulation. Here, this lawyer tries to bring the Christian ideologies as well. Munira's father was a Christian, so there was a kind of a battle between this Christianity, religious aspects as well, and the deformation of many things together. Harvest problem due to this modernization and privatization and all the Western influences. There was this harvest problem. There was this problem of the rain didn't came during the time when people went to the dairy barriera and the local politician. They didn't get anything. Such problems prevail throughout the novel. Environment and women are similarly exploited by the people. whether the colonial master or the neo-colonial independent people in Kenya. Here it reminds the Anya Lumba's article, The Future of the Post-Colonial Studies, third edition, which focuses on four major aspects. First one is the environment, the history and the present of indigenous people and societies, pre-modern histories and culture, the ongoing colonization and colonization of territories, labor and people by global capitalism. So in the novel, all four aspects can be analyzed. Environmental decay is also there. People, deforestation is there. Some other problems related to environmental issues are there. The history and present of indigenous people, because the novel indicates the future consideration as well and in the past. So people are much connected to characters are much connected to that, how indigenous people and societies are getting affected in the history and in the present in terms of colonialism. Third one is pre-modern histories and culture. Also in the novel, there remains a cultural erosion throughout. And fourth one is this, the global capitalization. Globalization and decolonization, both aspects impacts the novel a lot. There is an economic dependency. Earlier it was on colonial masters and now it is on their own people, rich elite people. Spread of Western culture values. There is a cultural imperialism. People were full. People like Munira was in much the brightness of this Western influences, and the African Kenyan culture, this Gikuyu culture, was about to in somewhere decaying. Environmental degradation, which the industrialists and rich people privatizing short-term profits over long-term sustainability of their own culture and environment. A satirical picture of the failure of the post-colonial nation to achieve the masses' dreams of freedom, respect for human rights, and economic empowerment after independence from colonial rule. So now the novel tries to satirize all the aspects that are prevailing in the after independence of Kenya. That is like respect for human rights, economic empowerment, and independence. It is a replica of colonial oppression by the new African ruling class. So, well, let me conclude my presentation here with some implications and consideration, because the novel draws attention towards the past, present, and somewhat the future of independence Kenya. What will be the present of the Kenya and other independent nations like Kenya? Post-colonial aspects and neo-colonial situation both are hanging in between. Through this power dynamics, remains the environmental concerns. Joseph as well as Wanja and Imedia's a bit transformation in between of the novel to join some of the rebellion and protest gives us a hope, given a hope by Ngugi Thiong'O that there will be somewhat a ray of hope that will provide them what they want. So, while looking at the post-colonial critique of the novel, there remains various concerns to look at. Thank you. This is the references. Now I am open for questions.
Trushali, what lessons do readers learn from Petals of Blood about the ongoing problem faced by countries after they were colonized?
Literature gives us a spectacle to look more clearly to the society in which we are living. While talking about the history and ongoing problems in terms of this colonial or neo-colonial situations, it gives readers a lesson that you have to look properly at something. The power dynamics are changing, but at the same time, whether it is in colonial or independent nations and states, the problems remains the same. So it is very much important to look at the histories, past, present, and future of all the things. And while talking about the petals of blood, in the novel throughout, Ngugi Thiong'O tries to elaborate what people are suffering in their life. And question as this Karala tries to teach his students to questions authority. The questioning is must. So one of the lessons is the questioning.
Trushali, how does neo-colonialism impact the character and society in the novel Petals of Love?
In the novel is like a neo-colonial power structure within the Kenyan nation. All the four characters, Wanja, Abdullah, Karega, and Munira, all four are affected from this neo-colonial powers. All of them are connected with one or other strikes and strikes and rebellion, political events, and they are trying to bring changes in that. This neo-colonial power structures like Kimeria, Chui, and Derivariera, all the businessmen, therefore they four are the representative of neo-colonial power structure. So through that, Thiong'O tries to say that all the people, like all four characters in the novel, they are having a great impact on the character like Wanja and Abdullah. They have to sell their bar to get back the land of their grandmother. Also, the construction of Trans-African Road and promises made by the government and the not political, but business terms. They were promising that people will be given some of the land, some of the things in return, but what they got nothing in the return. So this neo-colonial situation, power dynamics affects all the characters in the novel in one way or the other. Thank you so much.
May I start? Hello everyone, I am Rinkal, and today at the second day of our presentation of semester 4, I am going to present on exploring love, hate and human nature with reference to Vultures, poem by Chinua Achebe. These are my academic details. That is table of contents about the poem, then meaning of love and hate, service or love, then coexistence of love, of hate and love, possibility of eradicating hate, then a conclusion. Chinua Achebe. Chinua Achebe was a Nigerian novelist, poet, professor, and critic who was widely regarded as one of Africa's most influential and prominent literary figure. He rose prominence with his groundbreaking novel, Things Fall Apart. And his novel is often considered as a seminal work in African literature and has been translated into numerous languages. Achebe's writing is celebrated for its vivid portrayal of African culture, its exploration of colonialism's impact on African societies, and its critique of Western imperialism. Through his works, Achebe aimed to challenge stereotypes about Africa and offer nuanced depictions of its people and cultures. Literary contributions of Achebe, he has written 5 novels: Things Fall Apart, The Law of God, No Longer at Ease, A Man of the People, and series of Swana essays, The Novelist as a Teacher, An Image of Africa, Racism in Conrad's Heart of Darkness, The Trouble with Nigeria, Hopes and Impediments, selected essays, one poetry collection, Beware Soul Brother, and other poems. Here is the what I'm going to like explore in this poem. The one is commanded at the this camp and Holocaust camp. Then other is the metaphor which Achebe has given to the person. Vultures. Vulture is an expression of Achebe's horror at the obscenity of civil war, which was there in Nigeria in 1967 to 70s, which erupted even when the eastern part of Nigeria tried to become independent from the state of Biafra. Achebe was working for Biafran government at the time and witnessed the suffering, violence, and brutality of this bloody war. The rebel nation was starved into submission, and in 1971, Achebe published a volume of poetry, Beware Soul Brother, dealing with war and its legacy. It is at present his only book of poems and was published in the USA as Christmas by Vultures is one of the poems in the second section of the book, which deals with aftermath of war. Achebe takes an image of this creature vulture and its natural behavior as a metaphor for paradox of man's simultaneous capacity for good and evil. He then explores this paradox more explicitly, reflecting on the fact that good and evil, love and hate, kindness and cruelty can exist together in one being. The poem is set in the country where unburied corpses lie in ditches. Although the background is the Nigerian Civil War, Belsen concentration camp is brought into the poem as a reminder of European atrocities. The issue here, issues are here universal. The poem is structured in the form of an argument. Achebe's consideration of phenomenon of evil in our lives is reminiscent of some of the philosophical poems also, like Newman argues in one of his articles. Love and hate, what do they really mean? Love, first of I'll deal with love. Love, an emotion characterized by strong feelings of affection for another arising out of kinship, companionship, admiration, or benevolence. In a related sense, love designates a concern for the good or welfare of others. The word love is derived from a hypothetical term love, a root in Proto-Indo-European, reconstructed as the pyramid of Indo-European languages, meaning care or desire. Greek distinguishes several different senses with which the word love is used. Ancient Greeks identified 4 forms of love: kinship or familiarity, stores, which is called also like love related to your family members or which are connected with your DNA or blood relationships. Then friendship or platonic desire, philia it is called like in Greek languages, sexual or romantic desire, eros, and self-emptying or divine love, agape, according to Christeller. Is Tor's love inescapable? Like affection plays an essential role in parental love, and it could be maternal or non-material, material or non-material. Material affection involves the child's health, gender, accomplishments, or success, and attractiveness. In contrast, non-material affection includes traits such as intelligence, character, and other personality traits. Indeed, mothers and fathers have been found to favor the more intelligent and more ambitious, industrious child. Like according to one theory of love and hate, parents are found to love one child more, and obviously they will hate if they don't like some of their child. Drawing from Harlow's experiment on attachment in baby monkeys, it is evident that love transcends more biological bonds. Love is not confined to kinship relations. Instead, it is a universal emotion that can be extended to all individuals, irrespective of biological connection. So, there is one reference to this Belson commandant who will be there, taking care of this Holocaust and killing dead people, and then he will be going to his home and loving his little children. So, can it be same to in one person? Service or love? Like the person was there doing service at Belson camp, and at his home he was a father. So, can it be? According to Mahatma Gandhi, service is not possible unless it is rooted in love, in ahimsa. Gandhi stressed on connecting humility with service. Humility itself is a high moral value and one of the superior characteristics of human beings. It is necessary that in service through humility, love for all living beings and particularly for humanity remains intact. It is also necessary for the reason that sacrifice is inevitable in love. In its priorities remain for other pleasures and prosperity, even readiness to sacrifice one's life for others. And that is something more, but it cannot be said according to Mahatma Gandhi that if your service is something about very cruel, you can leave it or can do other works, but you cannot harm other people. One stanza from the poem. Thus, the commandant at Belson camp going home for the day with fumes of human roast clinging rebelliously to his hairy nostrils will stop at the wayside pit shop and pick up a chocolate for his tender offspring, waiting at home for daddy's return. About his duty, then at the return he will also keep chocolates for his child. Like, what does hate mean then? There is one triangular theory of hate given by Robert Sternberg. Typically, hate is thought of a single emotion, but there is reason to believe that hate has multiple components that can manifest themselves in different ways on different occasions. According to triangular component of duplex theory of hate, hate potentially comprises three components, and with love, hate can be captured by both feelings triangulars. Like there is one this triangular, it is same in love and hate both. That there will be negation of intimacy, then passion and commitment. These three elements will be found in both hate and love, according to Robert Sternberg. Like there are elements of hate is passion, then the third element potential component of hate is decision commitment, which is characterized by communities of devolution and diminution through concept for a targeted group. The hater is likely to feel contempt toward the targeted individual or group, viewing the target as barely human or even as subhuman. So the hater will consider someone subhuman, like even will not consider someone human and treat him anyhow they want if they are having some reasons to hate someone. And even brainwashing, so many tricks will be done by the hater. Instigation of hate covers just roughly 5 steps. Not all steps need to occur in order for hate to come into being. Indeed, even one step may start the process. The steps are: the target is revealed to be anathema. The target plans action contrary to the interests of in the group. The target makes its presence felt. The target translates plans into action. The target is achieving some success in goal. kinds of haters, like there are some kinds according to Robert Sternberg. Impure other, like you can make someone impure in your comparison. You can consider yourself pure and other impure. You can hate someone. Faceless foe, you can consider someone your enemy, greedy enemy, barbarian torturer, power crazed person. So yeah, they will be hated in some way. They will be hating someone in many on many bases. Coexistence of love and hate. Robert Sternberg has given elements and factors like commitment and passion, which are applicable to love and hate, and human nature itself sometimes shows to be cruel over time and affectionate at the same minute, but with different elements and people. African fiction is a redefinition of what counts as truth in fiction, showing how characters are crushed by the system is one way to reveal how systems work and critique them. Like in under African literature, Chinua Achebe and many African writers are considered to unveil how African people were treated as subhuman or how they were crushed. Irrational love and irrational hate, jostling together in the heart of the talented, tormented man. But whereas irrational love may at first engender foolish acts of indiscretion, irrational hate can endanger the life of the community. So, in Heart of Darkness, Achebe has given in one of his essay on Conrad's Heart of Darkness, the sentence is given by Achebe. Praise one stanza from the line, like how love and hate were coexisting in the Belsen camp commandant. Praise bounders, providence, if you will, that grants even or urge a tiny grow warm tenderness encapsulated in icy cans of a cruel heart, or else despair for in the very germ that kindled love is loathed in the perpetuity of evil. So the kinder or very gentle heart is also loaded in perpetuity of evil. And evil can have some qualities like, is that possible to get rid over hate? Charlie Chaplin's the last speech in his movie Great Dictator, and there is greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed the speech, but not we have shut ourselves in. Machinery has given abundance, has left us in want. Knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness and hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent and all will be lost. If you are having some good qualities, intelligent and many equipments, but you will always need to have some kindness, some compassion towards people. There are even now his voice is reaching millions through the world. Despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. You are not machine, you are not cattle, you are man. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate. You the unloved hate. Only the unloved hate. The unloved and unnatural. Soldiers don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. Chaplin. Then in conclusion, problems arising in the world are getting increased over time till today. By addressing those with disruption to human life, they are worth solving. Foreign and Palestinian aid workers with World Central Kitchen are killed in Israel attack after Gaza food delivery. So this news is from today morning. Like that, there are war is going on between this Israel and Gaza place, like Palestinian war, Hamas. Like even we are not free from war and kind of things. People will be also saying that we need war to solve our issues between countries and kind of things. So what Sahil Ludhianvi has said in one of his poetry, जंग तो खुद ही एक मसला है, जंग क्या मसलों का हल देगी, आग और खून आज बख्शेगी, भूख और इतिहास कल देगी, इसलिए ए शरीफ इंसानों जंग टलती रहे तो बेहतर है, आप और हम सभी के आंगन में क्षमा जलती रहे तो बेहतर है. Continue then. Oden also in his poem 1984, what he has written in his poem, there is no such thing as the state and no one exists alone. Hunger allows no choice to the citizen or the police. We must love one another or die. So people need to take care about one another, human beings, or there will be everyone dying because of war, because of cruelty and violence. टैंक आगे बढ़े कि पीछे हटे, कोख धरती की बांझ होती है, फतह का जश्न हो कि हार का शोक, जिंदगी मैयतों पे रोती है. Again from Ludhianvi. So how cruel, these are my references, how cruelty, violence can harm humanity and people, we always need to think about, and we have to eradicate those problems of cruelty, violence, and so many things. So these are my references. Why Achabe has given metaphor of vulture, because that bird is itself eating so many dead bodies, and vultures are considered that you will never find any vulture alone. They will be always in pair and loving each other. So that is that. So nothing has to do with kind of things. Yeah, I'm open for questions. You can ask.
Rinkal, consider the portrayal of vultures' dual nature as both creature of destruction and tenderness. How does this duality contribute the exploration of human nature?
Duality, yes, okay. A portrayal of vulture as a dual nature, as both creature, creature or destruction and tenderness. This duality contribute to exploration of human nature, because we as the human are. Vulture is a separate thing. Though Chebe has given him vulture as a metaphor, vultures are eating for. They are not killing someone to have revenge or to have make themselves superior or have any property or kind of things. They are eating for their survival. And human nature, that humans are doing something different from them. Still, there is only one similarity, that vultures are in dead bodies, but human also can and are also very lovable and affectionate birds. But humans also can. Humans are evil and good in one being only. They can also be the evil and good at the same time.
Rinkal, my question to you is, after analyzing theme of love, hate, and human nature in vultures, how do you think these insights can be applied to our understanding of broader human behavior and societal dynamics?
Okay. So, as I have studied love, hate, and the very dynamics I have studied are very crucial to be noted. Like, if someone is saying why I'm loving someone, and at the same time I'm saying I'm hating someone, on which basis I'm saying I'm loving someone and I'm hating someone. So there are some of the dynamics which needs to be noted, and then humans also have to take in consideration why am I being into war, and why we are doing things we are doing. So that is how it can be applied in our understanding of broader human behavior and social dynamics. Kind of. Yes, thank you.
Sir, can I start?
Sharing.
Hello everyone. Today is the second day of our presentation. On this day, I am present on neo-colonialism in Petals of Blood. Here is my personal information, table of content which I have present in my presentation. First of all, introduction of author. Ngugi Thiong'O is born in Limuru in Kenya, 1938. He writes novels, plays, short story, essay, drama, and he is also lecturer, journalist, and critic. Ngugi Thiong'o is primarily writes in Gikuyu and formerly wrote in English. He is the founder and editor of Gikuyu language journal Mutiri. He is the considered pioneer of the American literature in the Eastern Africa. His famous work are The Black Hermit, Weep Not Child, The River Between, A Grain of Wheat. One professor used this line for Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Ngugi speaks for the contingent. He is a recipient of many honors, including the 2001 Nonio International Prize for Literature and 7 honorary doctorates. About the novel. The novel was published in 1977. It is first novel of Ngugi wa Thiong'o's. The setting of novel is Ilmore in Kenya after independence. Protagonists of novel are Munira, Wanja, Abdullah, and Karega. Background of novel is Mama Rebellion. The genre of novel. Themes of novel, neo-colonialism, love and passion, local and global struggle, value of human life, and community and brotherhood. So what is neo-colonialism? The economic and political policies by which a great power indirectly maintains or extends its influence over other areas of or people. Neocolonialism is the control of less developed countries by the developed one without any physical presence of the colonial forces in the country. Although the country has gained independence, but its public, politic, economic, and educational system is directed from outside, usually from the rejected colonialist or from other empowered states. The word neo-colonialism was first used internationally on 19th April 1958 when Ghana's foreign minister Alex Constant said in his speech at the UN General Assembly, by neo-colonialism we mean the practice of granting a sort of independence with the concealed intention of making the liberated country a client state and controlling it effectively by means other than political ones. The term neocolonialism was first used in 1965 by Kwame Nkrumah after World War II to refer to the continuing dependence of colonies on foreign countries. In neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, Nkrumah has offered an in-depth critique of neocolonialism. He argued that neocolonialism is the final and the most previous stage of imperialism, since the old-fashioned ways of colonization no more exist. The imperialist power direct their domination indirectly on the economic system, politics, and cultural base of decolonized nation. Africa is considered to be the most affected continent by European imperialist aggression. It suffered from long years of eventual conquest and colonization. The latter fought and resisted all forms of domination and get its independence. However, it still suffers from what we call neocolonialism. Economically, although neocolonialism, like capitalism, is by its nature exploitative. If it properly managed, it has the potential to lead to economic growth and development. Unfortunately, insidious corruption, which cannot thrive without foreign support, ethnic issue, and nepotism often impede the realization of these goals. Neocolonialism in Petals of Blood. During the age of imperialism, European powers conquered African lands and ruled them as colonies. As the African nations began to throw off their colonial rule and become independent in the middle 20th century, they began to form their own governments and seek to establish control over their economics. However, the most of them became almost immediately prevalent of neocolonialism, which is where foreign investors and local ruling elites partner to invest in the country, but instead return said country to an almost colonial type of relationship. They are now subject to market forces, loans, transportation charge changes, and local corruption. Ngugi chronicles Ilmore's experience with neocolonialism, showing that all of the new modern developments merely hid the fact that the people were losing any power of their own. The novel opens with the shocking news of Mazigo Chui and Kimeria's murder. Wanja, Munira, Karega, and Abdullah find themselves under suspicion in the wake of the tragedy. Petals of Blood thus focus on new exploitation and struggle after colonialism. The emergence of the political regime that is authoritarian and corrupt, the rise of the robber barons, and the politicization of the masses. The focus of neocolonialism in the Petals of Blood is land and is based on social abuse, oppression, and exploitation and injustice. The characterization of the novel's principles is differentiated. Indeed, they undergo major transformation. According to Joseph Sitwala, the modernization of the area brings changes which Ngugi regards as an example of neo-colonization. He does not accept the urbanization of Ilmore because it has destroyed its original beauty and as such brought suffering to its inhabitants. The focus of neo-colonialism in Petals of Blood is land and is based on social abuse, oppression, exploitation, and injustice. Females being oppressed by males and Africans being exploited by the colonists have the same ideological basis. Women were described as oppressed because they were exploited and dominated. Subaltern nation too were oppressed on the same basis. They were exploited and dominated by colonial and imperial powers. A speech given by Nyakunya contrasts the working class and the elite. This motivates her to agree to make a trip to Nairobi. I think we should go. It is our time to make things happen. There was a time when things happened the way we in Ilmore wanted them to happen. We had power over the movement of our lives. We made up our own words and sang them, and we danced to them. But there came a time when this power was taken from us. We danced, yes, but somebody else called out the words and the song. They ate our forest. Then they sent for our young men. They went to swangling our youth. Ours is only to bear in order for the city to take. That is why Ilmore must go there and see the Nadamthia that only makes but never gives back. Politician Deravia only cares about getting votes from Ilmore during election. He forgets about the problems of people face in other faraway places like Ilmore. After the struggle against the imposition of colonial rule, after the struggle for independence, Ngugi envisions a struggle against the capitalist system as Kareka reflects. A true lesson of history was this that the so-called victims, the poor, the downtrodden, the masses, had always struggled with space and arouse with their hands and songs of courage and hope. To end their oppression and exploitation, they would continue struggling until a human kingdom came, a world in which goodness and beauty and strength and courage would be soon, not in how tuning one can be, not in how much power of oppressed one possesses, but only in one's contribution in creating a more human world in which the inherited innovative genius of men in culture and science from all ages and climes would be not monopoly of a few, but for the use of all. So that all flowers in all their different colors would ripen and bear fruits and seeds. Boogie shows this love for the land in his novel Petals of Blood, when primary setting of the novel is a small village of Ilmore, whose population entire livelihood dependent on the usage of land of agriculture, but at the same time they are very considerate of land and warily of strangers. When the government builds a highway there, it is not like the community, and then the neo-colonizers come and started to buy a native land. They build business and factories there. The modernization of the area brings changes with Bugio regards as example of neo-colonization. Bugio does not accept the urbanization of Ilmore because it has destroyed its original beauty and such as the broad suffering to its inhabitant. This can be witnessed when Ngugi gives a glimpse of pre-urban Ilmore by stating that Ilmore community experienced prosperity, commitment, and sense of belonging before the intrusion of foreign values. Ilmore has not always been a small cluster village with mud huts lived in by only old men and women and children, with occasionally visits from wandering herdsmen. It had its glory with a thriving village with a huge population of sturdy peasants who had tamed nature's forest and breaking the soil between their fingers had brought forth every type of crop to nourish the sons and daughters of men. How they toiled together, how they all fervently prayed for rain and deliverance. In those days, there were for no vultures in the sky, waiting for the carcasses of dead workers or insect flies feeding on the fat and blood of unsuspecting toilers. Bugio shows the bureaucracy is responsible for the neo-colonial exploitations of the masses in the connection with the appropriation of land by the capitalists. They grabbed the land from the peasants and later build structures that bring them much money. According to Gabriel, the capitalist system allows to rich to become richer, while the poor become to poor. As a result, the elite became petty bourgeoisie. Was culture is not exploit their own people. This is seen with Dodiya, the member of parliament representing the community of Ilmore. Dodiya owns a house which he managed to build from the money he collects from the people of Ilmore. The houses are rented out at a high cost, and in the end, he becomes one of the richest people in the area. Now I conclude my presentation with Ngugi. Ngugi talks about how African independence led to different opinions on how imperialism still affects Africa. He gives voice to various Africans sharing their stories and struggles against exploitation. Ngugi highlights how American women were forced into prostitution due to imperialism, but also shown how they, along with others, fought against it. He is the conflicting views of new colonialism. Shows how we oppose it from both inside and outside perspectives. Bugio criticized the African middle class for the gaining power from the people during anti-colonial struggles, but then causing up to Western bourgeois after independence. Here is my reference.
Riddhi, my question is that in what ways does Bhugiwa Thiong'o's critic, the Bhugiwa Thiong'o critic, the political and economic system that is perpetuating in the neocolonialism?
New colonialism by exposing their exploitation of post-independence African nations, highlighting corruption, inequality, and the continuation of colonial power structure. Uh, Power structure through multinational corporation and local elites.
Riddhi, how do the events in Petals of Blood reflect real life instances of neocolonialism in Africa?
The events like portrayal of foreign owned business exploiting local resource and manipulating political power, mirroring historical and contemporary struggles against external control and economic dependency in many African nations.
Hello everyone, I am Rajeshvariba and for the fourth season of the presentation on the second day, I am presenting with this topic, Wanja's journey through prostitution in Petals of Blood from a feminist perspective. This is my academic details, table of content, and about authors. The work Petals of Blood is written by Ngugi Thiong'O, and Ngugi Thiong'O was born in 1938 in Kenya, in East Africa, and he was a very prominent and influential figure in African literature. As he became sensitized to the effect of colonialism in Africa, he adopted his traditional name and wrote in the Banta language and Kenya's Gikuyu language. So throughout his life, he decided to writing in his native language. He has written prolifically in both English and Gikuyu language. Ngugi Thiong'O advocates for the use of African language in literature and education as a means of decolonialization. He was imprisoned without trial by a Kenyan government in 1937 due to his political view and writing. He committed African language and throughout the life dedicated to his language. He has received numerous awards and honors throughout his life. So I tried to give one question from this presentation. Is a feminist stance in support of prostitution is possible? Feminist interpretation of Ngugi Thiong'O's novels. So not only in this only work Petals of Blood, but in the all works by Ngugi Thiong'O, there is a reflection of feminist interpretation. So Ngugi portrays the women character as victims of a patriarchal structure of African society, but also shows their rebellion and struggle against oppression. Women like Nyakunya and Wanja are shown struggling hard against colonialism, oppression, and exploitation in Kenyan society. So Ngugi believes that British colonialism was responsible for destroying the social, political, and economical structure of African society and oppressing women further. So, in the Petals of Blood, there is the reference of Trans-African Road. There is a one road after this Trans-African Road, like as we have the national roads. It was like that, and after this development and this Trans-African Road, there is a development of this particular region, and because of this Thangeta drink, this is the traditional Thangeta drink of their culture. But after the effect of colonialism and development, so he was also criticized those things because of it affect their culture. The many of the people from the outside, they are also come to their particular place for this special drink called Thangeta. He presents both positive and negative aspects of female characters like Vanja, her resilience, but also being forced into prostitution by the circumstances. So, Ngugi highlights how women are exploited sexually, racially, and based on gender as class under patriarchal and colonial system. So, there is the politicians are also there, as Trushali mentioned in her presentations, who are the cause of different kind of exploitation, and business person Kim area is also involved in those kind of things. His female protagonist try to break patriarchal barriers, liberate themselves, and bring changes in society through their courage and determinations. Ngugi shows women as mothers, politicians, socialists, educators, and providers for families, highlights their multifaceted strengths and abilities in throughout his all the works. So Ngugi's feminist portrayal of oppression and resistance in Petals of Blood. In Petals of Blood, Ngugi explores the exploitation of African women based on gender, class, race, and throughout the character Wanja and his grandmother Nyakunya. While Wanja is forced into prostitution by poverty, and Nyakunya critiques how colonialism oppressed women more than men. When there is the oppression, there is the women are the first target. She is easily affected by those all kind of things, and their bar are also purchased by one business person, and now they don't have any economical independence, and that's why they are. That's why they are very suffered because of those all kinds of things. And Nyakunya's land also has some problem, and this kind of things are also the critique of colonialism and development by the Ngugi wa Thiong'O. Central driving force behind their circumstances is colonial legacy, which had a profoundly detrimental impact on the African continent, leaving indelible scars of the lives of its people. Consequently, in analyzing the experience of Wanja, the condition of women in colonized land, and how colonialism affects these indigenous women, as well as the relationship between colonialism and prostitution, as these are the underlying forces that precipitate such choices. So these are the causes that forces Wanja to be a prostitute and open a warehouse. One of the issues addressed by black feminists is the racial inequality between black and white women. when there is in context of racism, there is black and white women are they black feminists, the black women are more targeted in comparison of the white women. Black faces in general, such as less access to quality education, therefore more black women and white women are forced to consider prostitution as an economic option. So prostitution is the one option for a women for their economic independence, but how they are ready to choose those kinds of things because of the high level of poverty and inequality even in the education and other fields. Prostitution through a feminist lens. From a feminist perspective, the institution of prostitution is often viewed as the manifestation of patriarchal control over female sexuality and a form of gender-based violence against the women. The key arguments from this lens, from this feminist lens, prostitution commodifies and objectifies the women's body. So there is the objectification of women's body is one of the main reason, or can we say the argument when we are talking about this feminist lens upon the prostitution. It perpetuates gender inequality and male dominant over female sexuality. Many women are forced into prostitution due to poverty, abuse, and lack of alternative options in her life to be free. It normalized the idea of women as sexual objects, reinforcing harmful patriarchal ideologies. So it is normalized that objectification of women is very normalized throughout the history. So it can be seen like that. Prostitution exposes women to high risk of violence, sexual abuse, and health consequences. So the demand stems from attitudes that deprive women of sexual autonomy. So there is about this. There is no the society. So this is the cause and can be the demands of those kinds of practices in any particular society. The rift between prostitution and feminism. There is the three key reasons. So perceived stigma and judgment. So many prostitutes face the feminist view and the sex work as inherently oppressive and exploitative, leading to a sense of stigma and judgment. So there is in society there is so much stigma and judgment passed upon those who are working as a prostitute. Autonomy and agency. Some prostitutes argue that they have made a conscious choice to engage in sex work, and in the feminism should respect their autonomy and agency over their own body and lives. Divergent perspectives. The feminists often view prostitution through the lens of gender inequality and patriarchal oppression, while some prostitutes sees the work as a means for financial independence and empowerment. So there is a two views upon this prostitution. In 2022, according to Article 21, Indian government and the Supreme Court of India passed one bill. As per the Article 21, every prostitute have the right to live with their own dignity. So they have also right to live in the society with high respect and dignity. But people are not think about this. And according to with the lens of humanities, they have the same human rights that everybody has. So here is the definition of prostitution and the history of prostitution. So if we are going to the history of this prostitution, so this is the it can be seen as the one of the old profession that women had. This is an impressively through account that trace of the expensive history of prostitution widely regarded as the oldest profession throughout the history. It commences by exploring the pagan sex trade and ancient Greece, highlighting the intimate intervening and of prostitution with daily existence across all societies and eras. So it can throughout the history there is prostitution is always alive in the pages of history, and throughout the world there are in some countries the prostitution is totally banned. In some countries it is allowed with some rules, and in India it is prostitution is legally allowed, but there is a whorehouse and brothels are not legally allowed to run. So health concern, the growth of eight kinds of this forced renewed attention on the institutes of prostitution, this kind of STI and STD kind of health issues, and also this kind of health issue also faced by those who are involved in such a kind of thing. And this is not only a physical health issue, but also there is a mental health issue problem is also lives there, and abuse and lack of access of equivalent medical care, because these kinds of things are not seen as a dignity. So the person who are involved in, they are after when they are stuck in problem, they don't have the proper medical facility and care, and proper also we can say legal support to them. So here I have tried to put the another lens. In this presentation, I have tried to deal with the feminist lens through the prostitution with in the context of petals of blood. But there are the other lenses are also able to see such a kind of topic with a different kind of lens. Can be seen from another perspective too. So the prostitution can be seen from the men's perspective also. Here I have tried from the women's perspective, but there are also different kind of perspective and also different kinds of stands are there: sociobiological, psychosocial, pathological, functional, and feminist, and the discourse analytic perspective, suggesting that this topic can be viewed through the various disciplinary and ideological lenses. This is the space to look out those things with the different kind of lenses also in future. In conclusion, despite the deformative viewpoints, the feminist critiques of prostitution stems from a genuine concern for the well-being and autonomy of women. While some argue that sex work can be a choice, others contend that is rooted in systematic gender oppression and exploitation. There are the different kind of idea within this feminist discourse. Ultimately, the debate surrounding prostitution within feminist discourse highlights the complexities of gender equality, bodily autonomy, and the intersections of power and marginalization. Reconciling this perspective remains an ongoing challenges, but on that is crucial in ensuring the rights and the dignity of all women are upheld. In Indian Bollywood cinema, there is Gangu by Kathiawadi. One movie there is they shows the life of prostitution and prostitutes and how they live their lives. And in old India, there is the one. If we are talking in context of history, so in old era there is a concept of devdasi, the kind of prostitute work and from the women. A nuanced, multi-pronged approach looking at legal reform demanded reductions, empowerment of vulnerable groups, and cultural changes may be needed to effectively and ethically tackle this complex issue with their valid concern and with the solutions. Now I have concluded. This is the references that I have taken. And now I'm open for questions.
Rajeshwari, how does Wanja's character challenge traditional gender roles in the context of post-colonial Kenya?
So Vanja's character challenges traditional gender role in the context of post-colonial Kenya. If you are seeing in the context of here the African culture, so there are she is a black woman, and throughout her life, from the first he was abused by Kimeria and abandoned by the Kimeria. After that, she has various relationship in her life, but at every stage she's facing some kind of problems throughout his life. So she herself at the end, when she has to sell his bar at that time, because she needed some kind of financial freedom, and she herself opens a warehouse. So it can be seen as her decision to, like, she's the own his own body, and decide to find some financial freedom through that way.
Rajeshwari, in what ways does Vanja's story challenges and or reinforce feminist perspective on sexuality and autonomy?
So Vanja's story challenges or reinforces feminist perspective on sexuality and autonomy. So as I have answered Rinkal's question, in she is in her life. She is decided to start and open up a poorhouse that can be seen as we can say her own decision, and can be a strong can be seen as a strong feminist person and strong female of the petals of the blood work by of novel. But she doesn't have any option because of poverty and high level of suppression, and that's why she is starting this warehouse. So it can be because of the high level of patriarchal suppression, and she throughout her life she faces some sexual abuse and first by from the Chimeria, one businessman who has abandoned her and her child, and after that the Munira and other kind of other characters throughout her life. So it can be seen as with both of the sides. Thank you.
Am I audible? So hello everyone, this is Pooja Bhuva, and today's presentation is on the paper African literature, and from that I chose the topic sensory experience and emotional resonance in Gabriel Okara's The Piano and the Drums. Here are my personal information. So these are some questions or ideas I'm going to address in this presentation for address. First is what stylistic elements or techniques set this African poem apart from other African poems? How does the poet's use of auditory imagery and evocative language related to sound and sensation contribute to poem's themes and overall effect? Does the extended metaphor of the drums representing traditional African culture and the piano representing Western influence make the poem more engaging, impactful, or layered in its own meaning? And the idea that this presentation focuses primarily on the reader's perspective, what a reader can feel from this poem. So first of all, let us see what is sensory. So according to the article by David Howes and Mark Smith, these are two different articles, but they both say the same ideas. So I make a mixture of it and try to explain what is sensory. So sensory history is an approach that goes beyond just looking at text and visual to understand how all five senses, as we all know, sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch, influence human experiences and meaning making in the past. So in this poem, I didn't take all the sensories. It is not in all sensories. There are three main sensories in it, like sight, sound, and touch. So I explained that three and some of the emotion which came from this poem. So this approach was pioneered by anthropologists who immersed themselves in diverse sensory cultures, pushing historians to move away from the modern Western biases that prioritize sight and written text only by examining how different senses were valued and associated with social factors like gender, race, class, etc. Sensory history shed light on the complex dynamics of past eras. However, some historians risk oversimplifying this richness by trying to recreate or re-experience past sensation without considering their original meanings and power structures. So instead of just this trying to make dry slave by simulating modern imagination, robust sensory histories should interpret how bodily senses. In short, they say that the sensory, the meaning of sensory, somewhere change in history and in present also. So in this poem, the sensory and emotion get from a little different perspective, but here history explore how all five senses, not just sight, but mostly senses. So here are three senses, as I said. Let us first see about the poet of the poem, Gabriel Okara, and we are going to see that how he tried to explain this sensation in this poem. So he was a Nigerian poet, novelist, and playwright. He was known as first renowned English language Black African poet and pioneer African modernist writer. He also known as modernist poet of Anglophone Africa. Anglophone means a person who is also engaged with engage or identify with its English identity. Throughout his life, he dedicated his successful writing, prior to his experience at government college, this government college. It was there he got from got inspiration from various writers like William Shakespeare and others. He got fame for his so many works, and in the end, he titled as the Nigerian Negritadist. The editor of his collected poems, Brenda Osby, says about him that it is with publication of Gabriel Okara's first poem that Nigerian literature in English and modern African poetry in this language can be said truly to have begun. Now, exploring further in his literary achievement, there are so many books, and he was honored with the Nigerian Festival of Arts in 1953. Following that, he also got so many fame awards. Aside from his poetry and fiction, Okara ventured into playwriting as well. These are some other awards or honor that he got. Let's see about something about the poem and the drums. That what it is. So here, as we see, and there are two metaphors: piano and the drums. But here, drums normally we see that drums are in two types. One is like with all set, but here it is. It expressed in traditional way. So a traditional drum is referred here. So in the poem, the piano and the drums, the speaker compares traditional African lifestyle with modern way. The poem is primarily divided in two parts, but in structure in four stanza, with the first celebrating village life, second recalling his childhood, third expressing his confusion about understanding Western ways, and fourth conveying the powerful effect of both cultures on the speaker. Somewhere we can find that through his expression of piano and the drum, he somewhere is little disappointed because the modern African society is changed from its past and traditional way. It is said in this poem. So the poem covers timeline from ancient era to contemporary times and emphasizes the influence of foreign culture on Africa. Okara employs music as symbol in this poem, and the poem gives the diminishing purity of African heritage caused by the encroachment of civilization. So let us see literary devices, as it will be in the next slide. So I'm going to just say in short. So symbolism, as we all know, that symbolizes two elements or two tools, piano and the drums. Imagery, we're going to see in detail next. Metaphor again is modern, drums and piano in modernity and traditional way, explored with themes of cultural identity, colonialism, and impact. Contrast in this poem, as we know that contrast in two ways: piano and the drum, modernity and traditionality, again repetition, rhythm and musicality. This poem is how this line says a little about that, how this poem is different from other African poems. That this poem is said or conveyed in a musical manner. When we read this poem, we can see somewhere a musicality in it. The tone of this poem is nostalgic or contrasting at the same time. The tone of drums, the poem, the first part of the poem where drums are explained, it is give us the life or imagery of village life. And the contrasting piano gives us a modern life. So let us start with some sensory and emotional resilience. There are three sensories I explained, around four emotional ideas. So firstly, shy. I tried to explain through original lines. I wasn't able to find the original source, so I had to use treasury source for the original lines. So here first, I quote: "I see the panther ready to pounce, the leopard snarling about the lip, and the hunters crouch with spears poised." Again, in the next line, simple path with no innovation, rough fashion with the naked warmth of hurrying feet and groping hearts, green leaves and wildflowers pulsing. As we read this poem, we are able to sight all the scenery, or we are imagining all the sight or things which is in this. When we see that, when I say that there is a panther or a leopard is attacking a person, and a hunter shoot a gun on it. So we can imagine in our mind that idea. In the next, we see that this imagery of simple rough paths, it says that visual representation of more natural way. In the next, the green leaves, it says about a village life or a normal life. And it is symbolized green as a pure, original, or a natural way. Now, the second is sensory experience in sound. From these two lines, it is contrasting as again drums and the piano. So here was I what I hear jungle drums telegraphing, the mystical rhythm, urgent row, like bleeding flesh, etc. And second is that I hear wailing piano. So first we hear about the drums and the piano, and after that, in this line, the coaxing, diminuendo, a counterfeit, crescendo in contrast to the drums. The piano represents more complex, civilized, and distant sound. So here he says about drums and then say about piano and try to compare that both thing in the next line. As we see that the piano is described as wailing, evoking a sense of sadness and longing. He said that the drums are like original thing and it gives us power. Where piano is a sad thing. He also tried to give terms like concerto, diminuendo, and crescendo. Here, diminuendo and crescendo are Italian words. The three are Italian words, but saying a separate thing. Concerto, as we all know, concerts, and diminuendo means a decrease, decrease of sound, and crescendo means a growing sound, which is in high pitch. The sound imagery serves as powerful tool for immersing the reader in the poem's world and evoking emotional responses. As we all know that when we heard something in high pitch, we got attention from that. And if someone is saying very in low voice, we are not getting any point, or we are not interested in that. So it is like that. Sensory experience. Next is touch. It is not descriptive in more manner comparison to sight and sound, but it is here in these three lines that my blood ripples turns torrent, wandering in mystical rhythm. The next is rough with naked warmth and hurrying feet. Again, the same line, but saying a different thing. So the description of naked warmth and dropping horse evokes the sense of physical sensation and touch. When we say the sensory experience touch, we didn't get a more idea or more emotion from it. But when we say that sensation of touch, the words are very magical in it. So here they also works like that. But touch is not as prominent as other senses like sight and sound in this poem. This intense where physical sensation is implied or suggested. In the poem, we can say that there is also a reference of about when he is walking on the path and he is feeling that path through his naked legs. So that next is emotional resonance. So these three are sensory experiences. Now emotions. Emotion here are in four manner: contrast and conflict, rhythm and musicality. So these are some lines I tried from to get this idea. First is I hear jungle drums telegraphing against them lines, but saying that the drums evoke criminal emotion tied to ancestral roots and cultural identity. Here he says that when the drums are playing, the poet gets the idea about his traditional value of African society. So it roots its ancestral roots and cultural identity, while the piano represents the intrusion of Western modernity. Like something is someone is coming illegally in our house. It is like that emotion. The abrupt ending of piano sound suggests frustration, anger, and unresolved cultural conflict. He again says that the sound of drums here in emotion, the sound of drum is very beautiful for him, and piano is sad and frustration type of thing. The big difference between the drums and piano makes the reader feel strong emotional tension, according to the poet. This tension connects to the difficulty of bringing together traditional ways and modern ways. Okay, so next is rhythm and musicality. In this line, from this line, we can see that the contrasting rhythm of piano's concerto suggests that a more intricate, sophisticated musicality that creates a sense of emotional complexity. And the next slide, he says that the repetition of mystical rhythm in the poem as well, and the blending of drums and piano suggests lingering, wandering rhythm that leaves the reader with a sense of emotional ambiguity and longing. As we all know, when we heard the sound of drums, we all got like, yeah, it is the sound of drum, and we start thumping as well sometimes. But the sound of piano is more like emotional or like a flowing river. We can heard piano sound while sitting and relaxing as well. but somewhere it is contrasting from that. The blending of these rhythms at the end creates a sense of emotional dissonance and reflecting the inner conflict of reader and as well as from this poem according to the poet. Yeah, so I try to give my personal point of view on this poem. So fusion of sensories and emotion, my personal point of view. So this poem uses many description involving the five senses to convey somewhere. It is not all five, but somewhere little about smell and this thing, but it is not in big manner. So convey poetic feelings, lines like I see the panther and I hear jungle drums, engage the senses of sight and hearing, phrases like mystical rhythm, wailing piano and naked warmth of hurting feet evoke sound, sensation, imagery that steer the senses. By employing these vivid sensory details, the poet is expressing the emotional and inner experience. At the same time, the sensory description carry a deeper message about the loss of traditional ways and the acceptance of modernity. When we read this poem, we are not getting the idea that he is saying that piano is that. But when we go deep down in the read between the line, we can find that he says that piano is not as much as good compared to drums. So the reference of panther and jungle are more like cultural heritage. In contrast, piano symbolizes modernity. When the poet describes everyone getting lost in the sound of piano, as we all know, it shows the sense of disappointment from the poet point of view. But however, if we see our point of view, however, it also highlights how powerful and impactful the sensation of piano's music that everyone is getting lost. The poet seems torn between feeling let down by people's reaction, yet also recognizing the beauty and captivating effect of piano sound and sound that they have. The mix of sensory details, the emotional expression in this poem make us feel that it's magical and very interesting to read. Ultimately, this is fascinating how the combination of emotion and sensory description makes this poem feel unique and more engaging compared to other African poems. When music, some emotion, sensations are involved in anything, we are more attracting to that thing. Yeah, so this is all for my presentation. Here are my work citations. Thank you. Stage is open for questions.
So, Pooja, my question is that to you. How does any musical instrument represent a culture? Can you provide an example of a musical instrument that originated from one country but is now deeply integrated in another culture? You can give the example in context of India or any other country.
When we said about the example of musical instrument, I don't remember. I don't get any idea about musical instrument, but I can see some of the culture which are in the India are more on the outside of India. Like we can see that music. It is not totally musical instrument, but when we try to implicate it, it can be a musical tool. We can say dandiya, right? So when we do this it creates a sounds which is more likely to hurt from us. So this idea is more famous in outside country than India. So I can say I can remember that instrument, not instrument but a tool. Yeah.
Pooja, how is music represented in tradition and how is the tradition represented in music?
Little question. But how is music represented in tradition, and how is tradition represented in music? This idea is more likely to see as we all learned about African literature in detail. I can find some of the African works like the dance of the forest, as we all know that they play has so many ideas and implication about music, that how in the end that a person, I forgot the name, he says some of he sings some of the song which is like traditional in traditional manner but also conveys the idea. So I can find the representation of in tradition about music and tradition represented music more likely, or we can find mostly in African literature as long as I know. Yeah.
Pooja, like while I was doing listening to your presentation, one question came in my mind is that you mentioned about how African culture is represented by drum and piano by the Western culture. So, do you feel or think that the encroachment of Western values and Western people through piano is altering the importance of the African culture in the imagery of drum? Can you explain that?
It is like that. That is a line I forgot, but it is like in word everything tend to change, right? So in that manner also African culture should change. It is totally my point of view that African culture, in according to this poet, African culture has changed because symbolized as piano. That African culture is changing and it is not good. But according to my point of view, it is good because if some society or ideas change, it gets us new ideas and new values of it. So yeah, I can say.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Today is the second day of the presentation. I am going to discuss about Wole Soyinka's Dance of the Forest, a postmodern conceptualization. These are the academic details. These are the points I am going to discuss. First of all, about the writer Wole Soyinka. Wole Soyinka was born in Abeokuta, Nigeria. He won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1986. His family belongs to the Yoruba people, whose culture has influenced Soyinka's works. He is best known as a playwright. He has also worked as an actor and theatre in Nigeria and Great Britain. His works also include poetry, novels, and essays. He writes in English, but his works are mostly rooted in his native language or culture, we can say, in Nigeria or Yoruba culture. He wrote his first play during his time in London, The Swan, Dwellers, and the Lion and the Jewel. The Dance of the Forest, The Lion and the Jewel, Death and the King's Horseman, The Interpreters, Caesar of Enemy. These are the some of his most famous plays. About the play, The Dance of the Forest. It was first performed in 1916 to celebrate Nigerian independence. The play is known for his complex and symbolic narrative, which explored themes related to Nigerian identity, the impact of colonialism, and the tension between tradition and modernity. It is based on a rich culture, heritage of Nigeria, drawing on Yoruba mythology and symbolism. The play revolves around the community that gathers in the forest to perform a ritual dance. Throughout the performance, various characters embody different aspects of Nigerian society, and the narrative unfolds through a series of symbolic encounters and dialogues. Soyinka uses traditional African theoretical elements, dance, and music to convey deeper meanings and message. Dance of the Forest as a postmodern conceptualization. Conceptualization meanings a concept or idea. In this the antinomies of progress in a dance of the forest. The way Dance of the Forest embark and achieve its narrative of liberation is that it demytholizes old myths of progress by presenting certain antinomies in such a way as make readers how these myths have failed. The antinomies shatter the false image, wellness and progress, and present fragmented views through which we can construct new community and identity. The antinomies means we simply mean that antithetical conceptualization, or we can say a negative or a contradiction view of human progress. We all know the postmodernism, where every writer or a novelist, poet, whatever, they use the some kind of techniques, for example, flashback narrative technique. So in this play, Wole Soyinka used flashback device technique and define the historical tool, and it's therefore a postmodern aesthetic interest. It provides a historical explanation for the prevailing loss of values and the lack of humanity in the capitalist world. So, Wole Soyinka used this technique, and Adenemy says that I should have thought that something more in keeping with our progress would be more appropriate. Second one is the murder in the play signifies the barbarism and cannibalism which have plagued African society and which have also been the hallmark of the comparative capitalist modern civilization. Barbarian means which is a language, and cannibalism means
habit of eating a fresh food. And African society, and which have also been the hallmark of the comparative capitalist modern civilization. All societies have been basically propelled by the same ego motive. The dissatisfaction, frustration, disillusionment, and the gloom are preserved in the environment of the play in a manner that tends to prophesy the outcome of a newly independent Nigerian nation. The reader wonders at the scale of corruption and the reconstruction in the play. The human character in the play have obviously neither changed nor learned from any past mistakes. The same mistakes continue to repeat themselves. The corruption, hatred, hostility, cruelty, brutal murder, deception, and general lack of discretion. So the all these kind of things represent the modernity, post-modernity, and so that we can say that this is the idea of a writer. He used to write about their culture and society. The dead woman confirmed this. 100 generations have made no difference. I was a fool to come. So he want to say that all these things are still not changed. Everyone still doing same mistake and same kind of things. So this is one of the contradictory point. So third one is the vision of pessimism is significantly postmodern feature. Vision is described by Modakor thus in a situation where nothing happened or so much happened at a leisurely pace. All too suddenly, the balloon of Interia is punctuated and both audience and cast are suddenly. The balloon of Interia is punctures and both audience and cast are shaken up by the impact of the blast. And he further identified it as Soyinka's favorite method of organizing the structure of his plays. So the pessimism is one of his technique to write a play, which made him different. A Dance of the Forest is also a political play. It is not just a celebration of a glorious achievement, as suggested by the phrase in the title, a dance, but a metaphor for a contrasting fragments. So, in the dance, it is not good, but it shows the actions of the character. So we can give a metaphor for people's action. And significantly, antinomies in the text manifest as a social, political, and psychological problems which cause despair, which put any sense of achievements in doubt and destroy any celebrating mood. Soyinka addressed many social and psychological problems in the Dance of the Forest. So this is all about antinomies progress in the Dance of the Forest. Second one is the paradox of dramatic representation in a Dance of the Forest. The drama is a communicational act. A ritual and mythology can be useful metaphorical vehicle. This is characteristic of Soyinka's creative impulse, which he admitted in an interview he granted the Southern Review. I use Yoruba gods as a creative metaphors, sometimes as a metaphors for my own existence. One in a particular called Ogun. Ogun is a character in the play. We can say paradox means a contradiction. For example, in the play Wole Soyinka portray compare human versus God or God versus ghost or like that. It is dramatic style, which is similar to Euripides and Bridget's the narrative strategies in the text, such as parody, satire, irony, mythology, ritual stories, flashbacks, fragment, and foreground meant psychological, cultural, social, and political experience. They take us back and forward in the drama and enable us to see in the stream of time the DJ chronic and syndrome synachronic elements. Synachronic is a disease which portray in the play The Dance of the Forest, uh, which uh, which express the trauma of the Nigerian society, which constitute the totality of life in the dramatic representation. The dance and music are other idioms which foreground experience and make the dramatic representation meta-narrative of future continuities. Another thing is dance and music. Both the things are very well used and portray in the play The Dance of the Forest. So it can be a new metaphor of new metaphor. Take new metaphor which Wole Soyinka used in his play for giving a postmodern perspective. Conclusion. Thus, the play Dance of the Forest determined the relevance of the 21st century's Nigerian come African society. The play is paradox of dramatic representation and postmodern conceptualization. So all these things which Wole Soyinka use make his play a postmodern conceptualization for postmodern play. These are the references.
So, Payal, is the use of flashback, as you mentioned in your presentation, by Wole Soyinka in Dance of the Forest is effective in your opinion?
The flashback. If you want to make your writing or any kind of writing, for example, novels or plays, if you want past or a history, then you can add history and flashback or a past as a narrative technique. If you don't want, then you can you also if you don't want, then it is okay. It is totally based on your writer.
So, Payal, my question is that to you. How do the characters in A Dance of Forest embody postmodern ideas of subjectivity and multiplicity?
How do the characters in Dance of the Forest embody postmodern ideas of subjectivity and multiplicity? In the play, there are the three kinds of character. One is human, second one is god, and the third one is ghost. So we can say that writer used the three different kinds of character, which may play a multiple kind of play. So this is This make the play a postmodern play. So this is all.
Hello everyone, my name is Dabhi Nirali and today is the presentation on African literature and I'm going to present on motherhood in choice of motherhood, the universal happiness. This is my academic information and this is the table of content. These are some questions which I addressing in the this my presentation. Let us start with a brief introduction of the author. Buchi Imecheta was the Nigerian novelist, playwright, and the essayist. She was the Nigerian-born and the British author. She is widely regarded as one of the most important African female writer of her generation, and she known for insightful exploration of African women's lives, and especially in post-colonial Nigeria. She moved to England in 1960 for education and faced challenges as an immigrant, as a single mother. And in his work, he used the themes like gender, identity, colonialism, and motherhood in African societies. These are some notable works of her: The Choice of Motherhood, Second Class Citizen, The Bride Price, and The Slave Girl. Her contribution to literature widespread claim for illuminating resilience and agency of African women. And Imecheta's work often reflect her feminist perspective and her commitment to give voice to the experience of African women. This is the introduction of novel The Choice of Motherhood. It is published in 1979 and it is set in post-colonial Nigeria. This story follows the life of Ngugi, who is the woman from this small village who navigates the complexities of motherhood and the cultural and societal expectations. Nuigo's journey in Imecheta's work offers a poignant examination of the sacrifices and struggle faced by women in their roles as mothers, as well as the profound joy and reward that come with motherhood. Uh, Emecheta's vivid storytelling and insightful portrait of Nigerian culture and traditions make the choice of motherhood compelling and through provoking read shedding light on the universal experience of woman and enduring strength of maternal love and the motherhood. in the choice of motherhood. What is the motherhood? Motherhood is some part instinct and the scars and a powerful spiritual path for a woman to take. In literature, we see motherhood in other discourse that motherhood is a required theme across the cultures in the literature. Buddhi Imageta applies Western feminist ideology of motherhood for criticizing the African patriarchal of mothering and mothering, and motherhood is believed to be the central focus of mother's isolation and operations. And it is right to say that the choice of motherhood is a kind of false consciousness. It really is a power relation, and women are duped into thinking that it holds any promise of sovereignty or free experiences. The novel is dedicated to all mothers, which often be with the first chapter, the mother, and it is also end with the last chapter, the colonized mother. Introduction of the character Ngugi as mother in the choice of motherhood. Ngugi running historically towards a river to commit suicide. After the death of her first child, the son named Goswami, this shocking thing immediately established the central importance Ngugi placed on motherhood. As the narration was back in the time, we learned that Ngugi was sent back from her first marriage to Ematoku because she could not conceive a child initially. This made Ematoku label her as barren as a desert and take a second pregnant by neglecting Ngugi. The passage vividly portrays Ngugi's desperate longing to become a mother. She tries to surreptitiously breastfeeding her co-wife Ematoku's newborn son and whispering that, "Why did you not come to me? I cried in the night and long for a child like you." When her breasts start leaking milk, she appears to her God and asking why she cannot have her own child when she is not born. When after facing his humiliation of being called barn, and Ngugi is married off by her father again. She married with the name in Lagos. The passage shows that a pair by name unattractive appearance initially, but reveals that she started loving that ugly and a fat man when he made her pregnant. When she got Nuigo states bluntly that with this son, I'm going to start loving this man. He has made me a real man, a real woman, and all I want it to be a woman. And as a mother, this lays bare how consumed that she is by the singular goal of motherhood to validate her womanhood. After years of sacrificing everything for her family, Nuigo is forced to realize that the joy is, I think a mother was the joy of giving all to her children. And Nuigo's death her children built a shrine in her memory where woman can seek her blessing to conceive children. However, the expectation that she should continue to bless, otherwise fertility, Ngugi choose not to grant such blessing from beyond the grave. In the talk with the Adiola, Gucci Imecheta said that in choice of motherhood, I created a woman who had 8 children and died by the wayside. This is the story of Ngugi, representation of sorrow of motherhood. Ngugi faced a victimization and enslavement to the dictates of a traditional Igbo culture and regarding woman primary role as child barrier. And despite her intense desire for children, motherhood brings her nothing but relinquishment and disgrace and failure. She faces the neglect, abandonment, and abuse from her husband when unable to conceive immediately. The death of her children, the death of her children, caused her immense of grief and depression. She is burdened by poverty and she struggled to provide for her many children with little support for the school fees of her children. Her belief that son will take care of her in old age, in sheltering when they leave, but they all are leave her. She feels imprisoned and enslaved by her love and responsibility towards her children. In the end, when she died alone on the road with none of her children by her side, having achieved little fulfillment despite her incredible sacrifices as a mother. The sacrifices and hardship. Ngugi faced neglect and abuse from her first husband when she is unable to conceive children. And he even take a second wife, adding to her distress. With multiple children, including twins, Ngugi felt imprisoned and enslaved by the love and responsibility of the motherhood that drained her physically and emotionally. Her belief that her son will support her, but her proves false. And when he leaves Nigeria and shattering her hopes of a joyful old age taken care of by them, all her immense sacrifices as a mother, Ngugi died alone and unnoticed on the roadside while none of her children by her side. African versus Indian motherhood. In traditional African societies, represented in the novel, the choice of motherhood. Motherhood is highly venerated and seen as a woman's primary role and source of status. And having many children, especially a son, is considered essentially for a woman's security and respect in her old age. Motherhood still highly valued in Indian culture. There seems to be more recognizing of mother's right to education and independence outside of the mother's role. The novel critique on how American women's identity are subsumed into motherhood with little room of individual self-fulfillment. Indian feminism has worked toward giving mothers more choices beyond just being mothers and wives. Both culture, the African culture and Indian culture, both cultures are traditionally promoted prolific motherhood and associated a woman's worth with her fertility. And however, Indian feminists have challenged this more openly compared to what is depicted in the African context of the novel. The character of Ngugi, when she was not pregnant, that time she was dead, and when she have many children, that time she is dead because her children leave her alone, and they are not with her when she died. These are the examples of movie Mother India, which is connected with the motherhood. The movie Mother India, the movie is released in 1957, and in this movie, the Nargis role in the Radha, and she also sacrifices for the for her son, and also faces the tragic death of her son in the both in the novel and also in the movie. Nuigo and the Radha induce poverty and hardship while single-handedly supporting her family throughout hard labor. After her husband's absent of husbands, and her entire identity is subsumed into being an ideal long-suffering mother. And the Mother India and the joys of motherhood both celebrate the resilience and love and sacrifices inherent in motherhood, while also highlighting the profound joy and reward that comes with nurturing and caring for own children. And both the mother plays a role in the shaping the life of their children, but at the end, they both Radha and Nuigo both find herself in alone. The second example is from the serial Anupama. Anupama is also faced the challenges in a traditional mother and the stereotype by showing the character as a strong, dimensional woman who leaves her ungrateful husband and the son to rediscover her independence while still being a caring mom. This also the depiction provides an alternative to the mythicization of mother that interact with Nuigo. Anupama deals with the loss of in her marriage and strained relationship with her son. Both the Radha and Anupama, with the burden of societal expectation and around being an ideal wife and mother, but both the characters Anupama and Radha both they find that they feel alone because the behavior of their children. And in this serial Anupama, we find that Anupama's role as a mother and how their children are behaving with her and fight a lot with her. And also in the Mother India movie, the Mother India, the title also represent as the movies, Wole movie in the title Mother. The third example is from old age home. We find the old age homes in around our city, and we saw many mothers which are immense and hardship, sacrificing their own appearance and comfort to ensure that their children receive an education, opportunities, and a better future. Uh, but the children refuse to shoulder her responsibility, and the mother brought up their children with so much care. But once they become old and they deny to take up responsibility, and where the mothers selflessly sacrifices their own well-being and uh, aspirations to provide for their children, and only to face rejection or neglect in their later years. We find the old ages home where the children put their mother, and they are refused to take with them because they have to go abroad, or their wives are not taking responsibility of the mother, and when mothers are ill or they can't take responsibility of the mother, uh, they uh, they put their mothers in the old age homes. In the conclusion, this work is powerfully defined to spark a contrast between the glorification of motherhood in society and the actual lived realities of mothers in our society, and also in the literature. The protagonist Ngugi have to endure immense to personal sacrifices, hardship, and suffering into order to live up to the social expectation of ideal motherhood within the patriarchal framework. And the story underscore how the societal veneration of mother is often coupled with a lack of autonomy financially, and struggle, and deny the individual desires beyond their prescribed role. And this narrative serves as a poignant critique of the heavy burden and cost associated with the pedestalization of the motherhood across the culture, while also celebrating the resilience and strength of mother in the adversity. And as a mother, she compelled society to reevaluate its gender norms and provides more support system to alleviate and the challenges mother encounter. These are the resources.
So Nirali, as you said about so many mothers from serials, so what is your opinion about mothers in digital age, considering that the use of nannies as temporary replacements for mother is common nowadays?
Yes, Pooja. As I mentioned in my slide, that many examples from serials and movies which are doing all the sacrifices and for her child. But in this digital age, age, we find the nannies for taking care of the children, and we find it in our busy society and our busy life of as a digital age woman. We find many nannies, they are taking care as like a mother, and they get the salary for this work, and
Nirali, in what ways does the novel explore the idea of motherhood as a both source of joy and burden?
when we find that Nuigo was not pregnant with her first husband, and she faced many problems by the society, and they said to Nuigo that she can't pregnant, and the all the and that time she said, and the when she got pregnant with her second marriage, and at that time she feels very joyful life, and it is a joyful motherhood. But when she doing sacrifices and all the things for her children, but in the end of the her life, she finds that her children are not with her, and they all are live here alone. This is the burden for her.
Hello everyone, my name is Mansi Pujaria, and second day of presentation I will discuss about the title significance of the joy of motherhood. Here is my personal information. First we are discuss about the introduction. The joy of motherhood is set in a pre-independent Nigeria from the mid 1930s to the mid 1950s. The joy of motherhood conveys a sense of the enormous strength and the love which so many ordinary women have, and which is a backbone of their own survival, and that is their children. Nuigo is an ordinary woman, willing to accept her father's and her husband's authority over her. When her first marriage dissolved because she failed to conceive conceive. Her father arranged for her to migrate to Lagos to marry a man he has never been. The novel also deals the superficiality of a myth to which some Western feminists subscribe. Pucci Injeta criticized the fact that the myth of motherhood is imposed on a Nigerian woman, and the way in which the Igbo patriarchal society defined motherhood. In a Igbo society, the dream of every woman is not only to get married,
but also to become a mother, because it is a initial for her personality and her social status. And now we will discuss about author. Puji Mcheta is born in Lagos, Nigeria. And he was died in London. Puji Mcheta was Igbo writer was novel still largely with the difficult and unequal role of women in both immigrant and African society, and explore the tension between tradition and modernity. Injeta also married in at age of 16, and she immigrated with her husband from Nigeria to London. Her major theme of her novel is the quest of equal treatment, self-confidence, and dignity as a woman. Imcheta wrote as an autobiography, Head Above Water, and several books of children's and juvenile fiction. She was made as an officer of a British Empire in 2005. The title of the novel, The Joy of Motherhood, is taken from Flora Vapa's pioneering novel, Ufuru. The closing sentence of Vapa's book raised a paradox about a much conjugated childless river goddess, Uhamiri. She had never experienced the joy of motherhood. Why they did the woman worship her? The joy of motherhood is a immediate hauntingly ironical elaboration on those venerated so-called joy. In this novel, Imcheta tried to irony of the title. Imcheta attempts to make an ironical point with the title of novel. She points out that there is no joy in the life or motherhood for a woman who chose to live an isolated and chronological life in a changing world. What is finally at stake is the very meaning of the joy of motherhood, and more specifically the equation between the joy and the motherhood, and unthinking identification that the community makes between the two. In this novel, we can see in this novel, main character is Nuigo. Nuigo first made Nuigo give a birth of one child, but he was died. But after that, he have four children, two boys and two twins girls. In end of the novel, we can find that Oshia is Nuigo's elder son. He decided to study in America. When he does leave, he takes with him all of his parents' plan to see him return and help the family with the rising of the younger siblings. But end of the novel, this is not happen. And the other son is Edim. Edim is the second son. He moves to Canada after his dad's imprisonment. He has no desire to remain connect with his family and back to home. And Nuigo has two twins daughter, Kehinde. Kehinde is Nuigo's first daughter. She left home earlier with a stranger she met from Yoruba culture, and after that he marry with this boy. And other daughter, Taiwo, she is married with one lawyer and live with her husband. First, we can see the meaning of the motherhood. Pucci Mcheta apply Western feminist ideology of motherhood for criticizing the African patriarchal aspect of mothering. Motherhood is believed to be the central focus of women's isolation and oppression. It is rightly said that the joy of motherhood is a kind of false consciousness. It really is a power related, and women are doped into thinking that is health and the promise of severity or free expression. In this novel, we can find one line that say all the story of this novel. That the necessity for a woman to be fertile and above all to give birth to sons. Mother is a sacrifice figure. Nuiko is ready to sacrifice herself in order to feed and give clothes to children. Imagina tried to offer her critique the patriarchal meaning of motherhood, both her character Nuiko. Nuiko. In this novel, Nuiko is nurturing her child. On the other side, her husband, Nate, is free and work for her own other. In a equal society, Pucci Imsita goes to ahead to question to equal society, which is patriarchal blame Nuiko, who does not bring up her children carefully. Carefully. In this quotation, Nuiko tried to convince that he is not blaming for not giving birth of child. This equal culture is described as a patriarchal society. Pucci Cheta criticized the way African patriarchal institutions define the word motherhood. In the absence of her husband, she brings alone cares her children in the best possible way in any worst condition. Any worst condition. She is also trying to go and try to take a business and earn money and give her child to good life. Mothers hope for her children. In a world age, mothers hope for her children often achieve, reflecting a deep desire for their well-being and care, like a support, care, internal love, peace of mind. But in this novel, The Joy of Motherhood, it is set on Nigeria. The protagonist Nuiko navigated the complexity of motherhood aims at social pressures and personal sacrifice. Despite the challenges she faced, Nuiko's hope towards her children are deeply rooted in the cultural expressions and aspirations of motherhood in her community. End of the novel. Novel points up poisoned portrait of maternal hope, tempered by the harsh reality of life. Nuiko's journey serves as a powerful testament of resilience of human spirit in the face of adversity, as she grappled with the complexity of mothers and enduring legacy of her hopes and dreams for her children. End of the novel. The paradoxical end of the novel is a traditional belief that our distant burial is the joy of motherhood. Perhaps is the why Nuiko chose to be silent after her death, refusing to answer the prayers of women who ask her for children. Obviously, the women asking for her children do not realize the consequences of their prayers. Having a life to such a life, Ngugi know that the motherhood does not always bring happiness, and that ultimately women have the rights to choose their own destiny. As a woman must learn to be fulfilled in herself. In the novel, the conclusion of the novel, Nui, novel finds Nuigo grappling with the harsh reality of her life and the disillusionment of her hopes toward her children. As she reaches at the end of her journey, he walks straight to poignant and reflecting tone, shaped by the culmination of her expression. But end of when she was alive, that time her any children were not with her. And this is a contemporary news in our India. That we can find the motherhood fertility and IVF launches the new generation fertility treatment center. If during Ngugi's time, this type of treatment was happened, so her first marriage was saved, and her first marriage was saved. In India, we can find that if any woman was not fertile and not give a child of birth, so this type of treatment help her and help to being a mother. In a second newspaper cutting is the son in US. Woman dying empty flat. This same situation we can find in the Ngugi's life at the end of the novel. Here is the maps for a motherhood that reflect the harsh reality of being a mother. When your kid is crying and you want to give back to his mom, but you are the mom. This situation we can find in this picture. In other, when a new mom asks me if motherhood will get easier, oh no, honey, no. In the other picture, I am a mother. Why my mother thinks I do, what the society thinks I do, what my husband thinks I do, and what I think I do, what is the reality do, and what I really want to do. This situation is we can find is being a mother. In a conclusion, the title of the novel, The Joy of Motherhood, is the ironic by which novelists try to present the oppression, suffering, and loneliness which African mother experience with patriarchal society. In this during this novel, we can find that this title is a contradictory in a novel. Here is my reference, and thank you. Now we can ask a question.
Mansi, how do you think the title relates to the main characters Ngugi's experiences in the novel?
In this novel, Ngugi played a vital main role, and in the starting of his journey, and when he died during that time, we can say that the joy of motherhood is not a joy. In motherhood, there is no joy because nurturing a child, it is a sacrifice of her mother and struggle of her mother. In this novel, we can find that Ngugi is sacrifice herself to nurturing her child. But end of the novel, when he really need her children, but that time there is no children in nearby her. So we can say that this title is a contradictory in the character of Ngugi's life.
Mansi, how do the relationship between mothers and daughters shape the narrative of the novel. Mother.
In this novel, when we discuss about Ngugi's life, when he was born, that time her mother was died. So Ngugi and her mother's relation is not described in this novel, but Ngugi and her daughter Kehinde and was and Ngugi's relation discussed in this novel, but it is very less discussion of mother and daughter's relation in this novel.
Hello everyone. On the second day of presentation of semester 4, I am going to deal with the topic Chinua Achebe's Vultures, Belson Game, Genocide Insights. These are my academic details. These are points which I am going to deal with in my presentation. So first start with the introduction of Chinua Achebe. He was born in 1930 in Ogidi, Nigeria, was raised in the Igbo cultural tradition. Achebe studied English literature at University College, Ibadan. He began his career as a teacher before joining the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation. He is a prominent writer in African literature and famous for his novel Things Fall Apart. And he also wrote No Longer at Ease, An Arrow of Gold, and he also published poem, collected poems and Christmas in Biafra and other poems. His talent was recognized with the Commonwealth Poetry Prize in 1972 for his first collection, Be Aware Soul Brother and other poems. He received the German Booksellers Peace Prize, the Dorothy and Linian Cheese Prize, and the Man Booker International Prize for Fiction, and honorary degrees from over 20 American universities. He passed away in Boston in 2013. So let's discuss the poem Vulture. Poem Vulture is written in 1971. Poem explores the dark side of human nature during the conflict. This poem is a very thought-provoking poem which describes the juxtaposition of love and darkness through vivid imagery and a powerful language. In the first section of the poem, poet gives the imagery of vulture, and vulture is sitting on a dead tree and a grey weather. And the male vulture is depicted as close to his his mate, hinting an unexpected tenderness. In this second section, Achebe explores the nature of love, highlighting its presence in unlikely place like a journal house where vultures live peacefully amidst death. And in the third section, he talks about the Belsen camp, where the commandant's love for his child amidst war atrocities showcased the enduring nature of love amidst darkness. So he is the soldier commander in Belsen camp. He has both nature. He loves his child also, and he became cruel with other human beings. So in the final stanza, Achebe shows that love can have both good and bad sides. The soldier loves his child, but he also hurts others. The entire poem is filled with certain grayness. It evokes a sense of sadness and horror. So background of the poem. Poem set against in the Nigerian civil war. The war in Nigeria, with its associated mass atrocities, it arguably one of the first major movement in post-colonial Africa. We can find many post-colonial African literature related with the Nigerian civil war, and these were known as the genocide of Igbo people. During the massacre of Igbos in Nigeria between 1966 and 1970, 1 to 3 million people died. Massacre of Igbos and other Easterners across the country led to thousands of deaths and displacement of millions. And write about this civil war in their literature, and they explore their idea and their views on this war. So let's discuss what is genocide. In 1944, Lemkin published his most important work, Axis Rule in Occupied Europe, a legal analysis of Nazi-occupied Europe. In it, he coined the term genocide, right from the Greek genos, meaning tribe, and the Latin side, meaning to kill. He said that, I quote, murder had a name. Why was it named crime for one person to kill another, but not for a government to kill millions of people? Shouldn't states be held accountable for trying to destroy entire peoples, their lives, culture, and histories? I unquote. In the poem Vultures, Achebe refers the Belsen camp in his opinion. Vibrant during the Nigerian Civil War, the dead vibrant soldier would be regarded as a victim of genocide, just as the Jews who were killed off in the gas chambers and incinerated in the earth of Belsen were victims of Nazi genocide. The poem talks about the vultures eating a dead soldier. Vultures are birds that eat dead things, but the poem might mean something more. But Achebe might be suggesting that the real villains are the people who caused the war. They are the ones who created a situation where such violence happened. In other words, we can say that there is nothing wrong with the vultures, but there is everything wrong with the humans, whose inhumanity brought about war. They are the true vultures in the moral structure of this poem. The poem talks about the Belsen camps and how the people are murdered by the Nazi extremism. And Chinua Achebe records this incident in his poem The Vulture to describe the situation of Nigerian civil war. Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. It's established in 1943 for Jewish people with foreign passports, hoping to trade them for prisoners. But by 1945, it was filled with sick and starving Jews forced on death marches by the Nazis. When British soldiers entered the camp, they found thousands of dead people and 10,000 of sick prisoners who barely had any food or water. Here I had the experience of Anna Frank. She is a German Jewish girl, and she is also a victim of this Nazi extremism, and she documented her life in her diary writing. She mentioned that life at Bergen-Belsen was terrible. There wasn't enough food and it was hard to stay clean. and his sister Margaret got sick, and many people in the camp caught in disease called typhus that made them very ill. And he got sick too, and both sisters became weak. Margaret died in early March, and his health both worse quickly, and she passed away not long after. Although it was too late for Annie, the camp was finally liberated in April 1945. So here it described that Annie Frank, she also died in this concentration camp, and she described her experience and the reality of this concentration camp in her diary writing. Genocide and crimes against humanity, and some examples from our real world. Rohingya crisis in Myanmar. According to United Nations, Holocaust of Rohingya Muslim minority group in Myanmar by the military and Buddhist extremists has been dubbed a textbook example of genocide. This decision comes after a review of evidence including killings, mass rape, and arrests, and hundreds of thousands of Rohingya have fled Myanmar since the military crackdown in 2017. The Rwandan genocide. During the Rwandan genocide against the Tutsi minority, some writers and activists refer to the massacre as Africa's Holocaust to underscore the systematic nature and scale of the killings, which claimed over 1,800,000 lives in just 100 days. Uyghur genocide in China. This genocide is still going on right now, and there are growing allegations that China's repressive policies towards the Uyghur Muslim minorities, including mass internment camps, forced labor, and suppression, Uyghur culture and identity amount to genocide comparisons have been made to the Nazis, dehumanization and persecution of Jewish people. So these are some examples which are also connected with the Holocaust of Jewish people. In contemporary time, we can observe the war between Russia and Ukraine and Palestine and Israel. We can observe that in this war, many common people suffered, and they have to live in a refugee camp. They have not basic needs like food and water, and for that things they have to suffer. So this war and extremism and this type of genocide and war become this genocide and war becomes a metaphor in a literature for a long time, and writers and poets describe this. Situation of common people in their works. So, in conclusion, Achebe's poem helps us understand the horrors of war and suffering of the Igbo people during the Nigerian Civil War. It reminds us to look beyond simple comparisons and understand the unique experience of each community affected by genocide. Chinua Achebe's poems serve as a bridge between cultures and a stark reminder of the devastating impact of war. Achebe's inclusion of the Holocaust in his poem encourages us to contemplate the paradoxical essence of human brutality. So at the end, we can say that this type of genocide, war, and this situation become very dangerous for common people. And here are my references. Now I am open for questions.
In what ways does Achebe's poem serve as a form of cultural critique?
Chinua Achebe's poem Vulture as a critique of culture. So as I mentioned, Chinua Achebe described the situation of war genocide in his poem. So this describes how humans have a both sides. They love also and they hate also. But it is based on their choice. So but they are doing more in inhumanity works and this type of behavior and their decision of politicians make a huge impact on common people. So they have to suffer because of them. So in this poem, Chibe described this situation as a cultural critique through the symbol of vultures.
India, how does the poem Vulture by Chinua Achebe prompt us to talk about treating others fairly and kindly, especially when facing genocide?
So how the poem Vulture prompts us to talk about treating others fairly and kindly. As he described the both evil nature of human and the good nature of human. Human has a kind nature also. And through this poem, we can say that we have to be kind, especially when people are going through the situation like genocide and war, we have to treat them fairly. And in her poem, in his poem, she also mentioned the commandant of Belsen King, how he has also love. He loves his child, but he treated his other human very badly. So in this point, we can say that humans have to be kind and they have to love each other. And all human beings have equal human rights. So don't support these types of decision by politicians which impacted sufferings of the common people or their decision of war and genocide. We have to say against them and through literature or any work, we have to express our ideas that we have to be fair and kind with each and every human being. Thank you.
Okay, so some of you improved from yesterday's suggestions that some of you putting arguments or questions. The others, those who are not doing, you also can start seeing that you put one slide where you are putting some questions or arguments which you are going to discuss in this presentation. One or two, like Payal, still alphabetical order you are struggling with putting the things and that, so that error should not be there now. And whatever you cite, you have to use it as a source in text also. Then only we can come to know that you have actually referred to the article or only listed. Some of you have done good listing of articles from Gestor and Polytechnic articles are found in many of your presentations. If you are missing out, to refer that directly in the slide, like I think in Nirali, perhaps there is that problem. With all the articles which are cited were not found inside the text. So it is very difficult to find that what you have taken from that article, which idea that article is discussed in your presentation. So that you have to keep in mind. In article, there are many ideas. Which particular idea you are taking support to make your argument? In Upasana's presentation, which was on postcolonial, the seminal critics were missing. Many times discussed that four Bhumike Baba, Gayatri Baba, Friends, Adversary, and then many others. And then many others. Tumba, and we have somebody should be there in your list when you talk about postcolonial. That is what we talked yesterday also. Trushali did well. There was also on postcolonial. There were reference to many of these critics in the site. Rinkal also presented well. Was a good topic, love and heat, and quite well it was dealt also. Riddhi also on neo-colonialism. Rajeshvariba also did well with prostitution and feminist perspective. Pooja also was a good topic, a bit difficult one, because when you enter into music, then some understanding of music is necessary. Otherwise, we may get caught into how to reply all the answers. So that is the area where we find that here, perhaps moving ahead, we may find a problem if we are not good in music. So, those people who have done, if they pick up the poems, then they can have some vocabulary and justify them also. This point also that the piano is a symbol of Western and how writers try to assimilate how anything that is good from any of the cultures, how that can become part of their own culture instead of thinking everything that is of this identity or that is like that. How they can see that can be seen also. Payal, their postmodernism. Nirali, motherhood also, Mansi also talked about motherhood. Morning also we had. So in today morning I discussed some of the articles in the feedback so that you can refer to understand this idea of motherhood. From Gestor, there were several articles which are talking about motherhood, black motherhood, politics of black women in motherhood, patriarchy and motherhood. So you will use this keyword, motherhood and patriarchy, how the concept of patriarchy can be contested with the idea of motherhood. That is what motherhood is trying to do. Ironically, saying that there is joy or not. That is challenging patriarchal notion that is around motherhood that is challenged here. So when you give the examples, you have to be very careful in the examples. Some thinking is very important, through which you are seeing that example. Whatever we see as an example, if you change your stance, then you will find another meaning in it. So the example of Mother India, or a women dying, son in law, examples again, stance is very important. So if we try to sympathize the women, we are trying to put that women as Vichari women. Now that is exactly is not to be done. Nobody is Vichari. In that. So when we try to read that from that angle, then we are again reading exactly like a patriarch. You have to be considerate of this instead of empowering that women, because it is women's fault. Because it is women's fault. And why women is not able to do that? Because there is patriarchy. Women is not able to escape the patriarchal snarls, and so she has to suffer. So that is the question. So if we see this Mother India is a good example, because there was a woman who is making a choice to grow small children, works in the farm. She becomes a working woman. So those days farming was the main preoccupation. There was not a service sector. To work outside. To see that how that stance can be taken. But that is from their angle. It is not that how people should be sympathetic towards them. And Mother India is far better, a classic kind of a narration, because when a mother will have to fight against his own son also, who is also going to become a symbol of patriarchy, then will the mother be able to kill that son? And that is where Mother India excels, that she murders, kills his one son also. So that is so you have to fight at many levels, and then you excel. So it's not Vicharing women, not Vicharapan kind of thing, but how they struggle. And if something bad is happening, then you say you should understand. You should understand why you wanted to please the men around you, and that is why you are suffering. That is what choice of motherhood wants. Question patriarchal way of pleasing other people or trying to be happy in that manner. Try to be happy in that manner, and we don't know that we are a puppet of some discourses. And we be happy because that discourse says that if you will eat a chocolate, you will be happy. So the slogan of the chocolate will say that if you want to be happy, you have to eat chocolate. So I eat chocolate and I start feeling that I will be happy and I'm happy. But there is no happiness in that. That is the point. That in chocolate there is no happiness. Happiness is something else. It is first place. When we work hard, when we achieve something, there is happiness. It's not eating chocolates. But how we become a puppet of resource of things that go. So this way, stance taking is very important in those reading. India also the idea of vultures. Okay, so we are ending this today. Wish you all the best for tomorrow's presentation.